All right, so we're going to call the meeting to order at 7:01. And can we stand for Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And then we need approval of the agenda. Any discussion on the agenda? Okay, all in favor? Bruce walked.
Note that Bruce was out of the room.
Yep. Bruce out. And Sam's not here yet. So. All right, any public input and announcement? I don't have anything that was emailed to me. Do we have anything?
I've got nothing.
Okay. So approval of the minutes from 3:15.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Liz. And do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, and do we have any discussion on the minutes?
If nobody else does, can I throw one thing in?
Yep.
I think under our reorganization stuff, yes, it's on here. Board representative to VSBA, I think we should word that differently, because Liz is not a VSBA representative. She would be, if we can word that to say something like, and I didn't even think about this when we were reviewing the minutes, somebody else told me this. The board's VSBA information person, something like that.
Liaison?
Yeah, if that makes sense. Just so that nobody reads this and gets the wrong impression.
Okay. All right, with that change, how are we with the minutes? All right, all in favor? And we are good. Bruce, did it look good? Just happened.
Minutes?
Did it look good? Okay. All right, Clarendon update. And is it raining out?
It is. That's
Okay. Sorry.
Hi everyone. For those of you who don't know me, although I recognize most of you, my name is Julia Wyman. I teach first grade here at Clarendon, and I thought I'd just kind of pop in to say hey, but also just let you know some of the really cool things that are going on in primary, so in the kindergarten, first and second grade classrooms. I know that you've kind of heard at many a board meeting about the ELNIC work that we've been working on. I know that Deborah Bosch was able to give you a data update about some of the things that we have going on, especially with regard to early literacy, which is kindergarten, first and second grade. And so I just wanted to highlight a few things that we have going on in our classrooms. I'm not going to do as eloquent a job as Shannon and Katrina would for their rooms, but I really wanted to make sure that all of us were represented for you here today, so you know all of the amazing things that are going on here. Our PLCs, I'm not sure how much you've heard about them this year, but our professional learning communities for educators are focusing on using research-based methods for our instruction for our learners. And so kindergarten is working on quite a few of those research-based methods. A new introduction of the alphabet to kindergarten learners. So there's a text out there called No Longer Teaching a Letter a Week, which is has been proven through research to not be effective teaching for kindergarten and acquisition of letters and letter sounds and letter names. So we have a new rollout that she's been working on this year, and the kids are grooving. They all know their alphabet and letter sounds and are working on reading CVC words. There's a new strategy out there that's based in research out of lots of places, but mostly this Michigan State University in the methods of teaching high-frequency words to kids. So those words that are not necessarily quotable, but are words that come across in text and they need to memorize by sight. They used to be called sight words. These words occur frequently in texts, and instead of memorizing full words, kids are taught to memorize sections of words, which is all research-based, and that's happening across the 3 grade levels. We have some people trying out some of the UFly curriculum out of University of Florida. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of any of that yet, but again, research-based methods that have been recommended through the ELNIC work that we've been doing. All of us are using Sharon Walpole's differentiated reading instruction series. It's part of a bigger curriculum called Bookworms, but all 3 classrooms are using it, and the data that Deborah was able to show, and hopefully that we'll be able to present with you later on, is going to show a huge uptick in acquisition of being able to decode words at a faster rate, and kids are moving on to being able to be fluent readers by the end of 1st grade, which is wonderful. Lots of interactive writing, which you can see in the picture here for kindergarten. Some of the interactive writing strategies, which are based in research, have a lot to do with authentic audience. So making sure that when the kids are writing, they're writing for people that they care about, or writing for a specific purpose or reason. The kids here in kindergarten are writing their names on pieces of paper and then using those names to choose what they would like to eat for lunch. So there's obviously purpose. They really care about what they want to eat. So they engage in that writing. And then just using decodables and developmentally appropriate texts. Shannon is doing an outstanding job. Using some examples of some of the things that she's been doing, working on text sets and using decodable text throughout the curriculum. These are just some examples of what she's doing with some of her science units. This is from my classroom. I'll try to be quick about this. I could talk to you about it forever, but some of those same strategies, Sharon Walpole's differentiated reading instruction. I've also been piloting some of the Bookworms program, which again is all based in research, making sure that we're using best practice all across our ELA instruction. Here you can see the kids engaged in reading a chapter book, and we're in March of 1st grade, and this chapter book is designed for about the beginning of May, but because of all of the work that we've been doing with decoding, the kids are not only able to access the text, but answer some pretty high-level thinking questions about the text. So that's kind of what they're doing there. I'm also piloting using some PDSA cycles, which is data-informed instruction, which I'm pretty sure Deborah has probably touched on with you. Using data to inform instruction, but also to make a plan of action, like to see where we're going next. And the kids and I are actually working on them together, so they know what their problem is, they know what goal they're trying to reach, and then we use some strategies, and then after we do that, we take a look at what worked and what didn't, and then we create a new goal and go through that cycle. And the kids are actually like putting themselves on different rubrics and things so that we can use all that information. That's our data. So that's just a little bit of 1st grade. Here's a story map that we're working on for the Chalkbox Kid. Also some sentence starters for kids to talk about text, because talking about text is really important, but it's really difficult for kids to kind of get a jumping off point in order to do that. So that's what that is. And then in 2nd grade, Katrina has been doing a wonderful job of not only incorporating Sharon Walpole's differentiated reading instruction, but also the new strategies for high frequency words. She's been working with an interventionist to help kind of navigate and learn how to use some of that stuff. She's also doing a really wonderful job, and she's kind of picked up on this through our PLC work in using some of her interactive writing with authentic audience with 2nd graders, and it looks a little bit different than kindergarten. So the 2nd graders are hopping on to Book Creator and creating texts for people that they love and really care about. They can share them digitally, but also print out copies and read them to their friends, which is like the coolest thing to do if you know any 2nd graders. They want to share everything with their friends. And then on the next slide, there are some pictures of interactive writing and writing for an authentic audience. The kids take turns writing a morning message for one another and then providing feedback about what that morning message looks like. Because if a child doesn't know how to write the morning message or doesn't relay the correct information, then kids don't necessarily know what is coming for the day. What day is it? What special do we have? Again, what's for lunch, right? So they rely on one another and use those strategies in their classroom. that's it for me. I tried to keep it quick, but I urge you to come visit us, come take walks through our classrooms, and also if you have any questions, you can email me or ask any of the building principals, and I'm more than happy to share more information with you. You would be so proud of all the hard work that our kids are doing, but also what our teachers are doing. So thanks for the opportunity to touch base with you, and I'm going to turn it over.
Yeah, and I just want to give credit to Julia. We had our educational support team meeting today, and Julia brought her learners. We had a little extra time through going back through, and the number of learners that have made so much progress that we've been able to exit them off of their ESTs, and just noting for the future that they had some struggles, but Julia's worked really hard with her class, and they've made some tremendous progress this year. So kudos to her. So principal's update. So I just went with lots of pictures today, and then I'm just going to talk at you, and you can admire the beautiful pictures of all of our wonderful learners. So we have pictures of our pre-K students who didn't get to attend music in our schools, but their teachers felt, because they're not allowed to ride the buses, their teachers felt it was important for them to get the musical experience, so wanted to highlight that. We've had some awesome presentations this last couple of months. One was from a small reading group. They did a reader's theater for our younger students, so we got to go observe that. We have a student teacher right now in 4th grade who's doing a great job. We got to go observe him doing some reading groups, and you can't quite see it, but in the bottom middle, Mr. Stratton recently got some, so our PTO is doing a clear the list, and he wanted ukuleles for his classes to engage younger learners in instrumental music. And so not only did he get some from the clear the list money from PTO, but we were able to find some money to get him some more so that all of the kids in the class could be participating on the ukulele, and to see them in their class engaging in this has been really awesome. Moving forward, we've made some community connections this year, or this last couple of months. So we had the Rutland Southwest Rotary Club come in, and they donated dictionaries to all of our 3rd graders, who were very excited to have their very own dictionaries. Kaylin and Mill River, a panel of Mill River students came in, and they did some step-up work panel with our 6th graders, and they got to ask questions, and they got to learn more about Mill River. And Kaylin's been doing a great job of creating these step-up events so that our students are more prepared and feeling more at ease. And just to see the level of nerves about Mill River is starting to go down as they start to learn more about it. So I'm excited for our upcoming events of getting to take kids over there and to have some open house nights and things like that. And then in the middle, we just had a PTO event. We have school dance in here, it was space themed, and our after-school program actually made all the decorations for the dance. There used to be a planet and a sun, a moon and a sun up on the display, but they took it down. But our after-school program got involved, and they got to make the decorations, which was great. Moving forward, so we've been doing a lot of focus on PBIS work this year. So that involves classroom celebrations, it involves full school presentations. Julia's 1st graders just did a presentation for us this month. And just to see the differences in the types of presentations is great. This was last month was kindness and equity, and so the 2nd graders put it on, and one of their examples of equity was, everybody gets what they need. Not everybody needs glasses, but some friends do need glasses. And so that was one of their real life examples for our students. So along with our PBIS work though, one of the things that we have noticed, and during our continuous improvement plan meeting with Glenn, he was like, well, just share it. Be open and honest. So one of the things that we've noticed this year is an uptick in behavior. And so there are a lot of contributing factors. So I just put our behavior data. This is by location. Obviously the biggest piece of our pie is in the classroom, because that's where they spend the majority of their time. Our other 2 larger areas were the playground, which unstructured time, less grown-up supervision. I mean, there's grown-up supervision, but it's in a larger area. And then the bus was our other area. So we started to brainstorm, what are possible reasons for these behaviors? Is it just because we're collecting more data this year as a school and we're actually looking at it and figuring out that way? Is it, are there just new learners that have moved in and changes in dynamics in classrooms have impacted it? And we've brainstormed a lot of reasons why we might be seeing this. And so one of the things that we noticed too was we've had a lot of sickness in February and March especially. And so what happens is it's hard to find substitutes right now. So we're pulling resources from other areas to cover classrooms and to compensate for those staff members who are out, and then that kind of creates this little bit of burnout, and then somebody else gets sick, and then we kind of got into this cycle for a little bit in learning. But one of the things that we gleaned from this is we have really good universal supports in the classroom for all learners, for their behaviors. And we have a therapeutic classroom in the foundations program. So we have a jump from maybe a tier 1 to a tier 3. But what's happening in between is Paula Reynolds, the school counselor, and I are kind of running around doing all this stuff. And so we've been looking at what can we do as a school to make changes for next year, and thinking about how can we put into place a tier 2 intervention, which might be a check-in, check-out program, a stationed adult in a room where a kid can go take a break, where they can have proactive interventions instead of us constantly going, oh, what are we doing? Help me. So those are a lot of things that we gleaned from all the behavior data and what we're learning this year, and what we're looking forward to for next year. And lastly, so those are our students that we recognize this month at the end of it, but just looking towards the future and what we're going to do for all of our learners, and just our upcoming events of graduation and BTCAP testing, the state testing, and everything that we're getting ready for. But lots of things happened in Clarendon this last couple of months since we saw you, continue to happen, and good plans for the future.
Any questions?
I have questions.
Go ahead, Liz.
Thank you both for your presentations. They were fantastic. So I have a few questions. I am wondering if our town public libraries, our town recreation programs, and or our district camps offer summer reading programs to support our readers.
Yeah, so I know that the summer camp that's running through the school is really focusing on different types of activities, and they've been working with, I think the summer academic program is going to happen after that, because they wanted to make sure that all the students had the opportunity to participate in the fun events and activities that they do at camp that might be a little bit different than a traditional academic program, and so they've been working. What? Oh, and that, yes, the academic part would be special education students. I don't know of any programs going through the library or the rec, but.
The only thing that I could speak to with the town library is that I know that Joe Bertoloni, who's our current librarian, as well as Barb, who's the librarian over at the library, work in conjunction with one another to make sure that they're hooking up, I forget which grade, but I think it might be 3rd or 4th with library cards, so access to books, which is really important for readers. That's the knowledge that I have to answer part of the question. But
All right, thank you. Can I keep going?
Sure.
Okay, all right. My other question is, I think for Brian, actually. I understand Castleton student teachers are not allowed to sub. Is that correct?
Not while they are completing the requirements of their student teaching. So what we've worked with those students on in the past is if you are fulfilling your practicum, then we don't have you substitute for that teacher that you're fulfilling the practicum for. So say you're in that classroom for 6 weeks, partnered with a mentor teacher, that's work that you would be doing under your practicum, so we do not compensate for that. But we absolutely allow those student teachers, say that 6-week practicum is over and they want to sub for that mentor teacher after that, absolutely.
Okay, and I'm just wondering,
Yep.
so the reason being, when I was doing my teaching practicum a million years ago, I subbed for my cooperating teacher and I was paid for it. And I'm just wondering if that would alleviate some of the pressures that we have with
I think some
shortages.
programs allow it, some programs don't. So,
Castleton does allow it.
yeah.
They're just not allowed to do it during their solo time. So they are allowed to sub a certain, they have like a handful of days that they are allowed to sub. That said, in some cases, it's not always, it wouldn't always be the best fit to have them sub in a classroom. So we have to look at need. One of the areas that got hit really hard this winter was pre-K, and you have to have a lot of extra endorsements and certifications to be able to work in pre-K, and we only have a few people in the school that don't work in a classroom that have those endorsements. So those are like areas of, like our homeschool resource coordinator is one of them, and so she works with students who might need extra support because of missed school time. So she ended up having to get pulled to go into there. So there are certain areas we try as best we can to utilize the resources that we can that will make less of that won't have the biggest impact, but in that case, utilizing a student teacher to something that we wouldn't be able to do it in like a pre-K program.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's a
And
good
Liz, going
question,
back to
though.
our public libraries, the Vermont Public Library system does have a summer children's program that is statewide. So every single year they choose a focus with some anchor text, and that goes out to all the different libraries in the area. So it is dependent on that library and staffing whether or not they run it, but to my knowledge, our libraries do run that.
Okay, great, thank you. And then my last question is, based on the data that you've been collecting around behavioral observations, is that something that you will then apply to inform professional development?
So all of our building-based PD this year has been based around PBIS, and I think I said this in the last meeting, our system here hasn't been updated since its creation in 2013, which I guess 2013, that's a decade old.
10 years.
A lot has changed. And one of the things that we have is we have the foundation of it, but what we need is, we've had staff turnover in the last decade, and a lot of teachers have retired, and so just educating people on trauma-informed practices and like how do we interact with students, and just kind of that coaching piece, and looking at one of the things we're working towards is what behavior data are we collecting, and like what does that look like, and are we writing they call it a green slip because that's the color of the paper, which is a behavior observation form is basically what it is. Are you writing it for every little thing, or are we really trying to like track what the behavior is? And I think in the past the green slip has been punitive, whereas this year I'm looking at it as, ooh, you know what, I'm looking at this and I'm seeing at math time every day that this student is having an issue, so what intervention can we put in place during that time? Or oh, PBIS stands for Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports. So it's a multi-tiered system of support, just like you would have for academics. If a student had a need in reading, you would provide an intervention for reading. If a student has a behavioral need, you try to find what the root cause of that is. It could be academic, but you provide a behavior intervention for that. So when I say like a specialized room, it might be like a check-in, check-out program with a trusted adult that would be that one person for that kiddo, who they could go in the morning and check in with them, or have like a check-in before math class, because that's where they're going to have their biggest struggle and get that positive support. So yeah.
I think I have more of a comment than a question, but like, 'cause I have a daughter who's in first grade, so like we're in the LMIC, like great, and it's like we just had our meeting a couple weeks ago with Ms. Davis, who had gone to Oregon with, I don't know if you got to go on that trip too, but it's like so very fantastic, and it's like my daughter happens to like reading too, but like she's like, oh, I have chapter books in my basket now, and very excited, but like just the fact that like even if you're more hesitant of a reader, it seems like just being able to figure out these words a lot faster makes the experience just so much better, and then maybe you can find the other parts of school that you like and like just do better and enjoy the other things. So it seems like that's really working out really well.
I got to go to Oregon too and got to see all the PDSA cycles in action, but having Julia have her kids self-monitor and see that progress themselves is also really motivating. I mean, who doesn't love to like set a goal for themselves and be like, yeah, I achieved it, and so to be able to do that academically is really important.
And PDSA sounds fancy. It's
Oh, yeah.
Plan, Do, Study, Act.
All we do is use acronyms. It's just
Yeah, so Plan, Do, Study, getting what works, and then we're revising.
And I will just say too, I think it's important, I was able to share with the ELNIC team and the folks representing the state of Vermont, and as an early literacy instructor, I've been at this for almost a decade now, and to go from instructing learners and having it be almost like this something you have to get through experience, as opposed to what's happening now where every person sitting at the table, including the instructor, is excited by what's happening and the progress that's being made and the accessibility of what's happening and the fact that every learner can be successful is game changing. And I think you're just going to see it. You're going to see readers who love to read, and those kids who don't love books so much also reading, so it's pretty exciting.
I think I'll be the broken record. Amazing that we're hearing about data. Our teachers and our administrators are recognizing that there are gaps and there are needs. Things aren't perfect, but we're looking at those problems. We're trying to figure out strategies, and we're seeing whether they're working or not. And gosh, when they work, it's exciting. And interesting to see that we're doing that with behavior too. That's not just an academic thing. We're looking at, well, where are the behaviors happening? Because if we know where they're happening, we can figure a strategy out, we can try it. Maybe it won't work, but at least we're willing to try. That is all work that is going to show up, I really think, in 3, 4, 5 years. It's great that we're seeing results now, but I think to really see that pay off, it is going to take time to really do that work consistently. So as you hear things pop up around opportunities to sustain this work, I think it's important that we think about, like, finance committee, how do we make sure we fund that work? Personnel, how do we make sure that we've got the people to keep that work going? I think there are definitely some clear board pieces to support that, if that makes sense. Yeah. Okay, I'll be quiet now, sorry.
Anything else that we want to? Any other questions? All right, well, thank you, Clarendon.
Thank you.
On to Mill River updates.
Hi, I'm Karen Stannard. I'm the assistant principal at Mill River. I've met some of you, but not all of you. So we're going to talk a little bit about the guidance department at Mill River this year. One thing we're working on is, and I think we're there right now, is we've updated our guidance website. We've administered some assessments this year. We've administered the SATs, the ASVAB, which is the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. That actually measures academic ability, and it helps to predict success in a variety of occupations. We've also focused on social and emotional supports this year. We've put some posters up in our building. We have pamphlets, little cards, and guidance for students who may need some support, whether it's on weekends or in the moment. And I'm going to pass it on to Stacey.
I'm Stacey Farrington, and I just want to go over some things as the Dean of Students, what my role is this year, and working with the guidance team. So for my role, some of the big pieces are that making sure that our students are on track to graduate. So we're doing a lot of work with credit accounting, and I'll explain that a little more in detail. Working with our education support team to make sure that our students have the academic and behavior support that they need. Working with our school counselors to make sure they're providing the social emotional learning that our students need, and also looking towards the summer, providing any remediation or recovery that our students may need that are not on track to graduate. So I'm just starting that process now with teachers getting ready to plan what we can offer for the summer for students who need to recover some credits. We have been doing some work lately with students. We've been going into our advisories and working on credit accounting with our students, so our students understand what their credit accounting looks like. So we went into all the advisories in the high school and went through check sheets with them. So they actually took their transcripts, they did their own credit accounting with us kind of overseeing what their credits, what it looks like, what the graduation requirements are, what they're going to need, where they might need to focus in the next couple of years, and also talking to them about what they might want for electives next year before schedules are built, the master schedule is built. Another focus for us this year is really communication. Communication with our parents, communication with the community. I act as the liaison with Stafford, making sure that we're communicating with Stafford, setting up our visits for our students. Again, we have the guidance website. We've also set up a Google Classroom for our Stafford students so they can see what's going on. Every week I share with them what's going on in our advisories. I send emails to their Rutland email addresses to make sure that they're seeing what we're doing, and also like scholarships that are coming up for seniors and all those things, and just making sure that we're communicating with them on a weekly basis. Lynn Patrick is sending out weekly emails to our seniors. Here are the scholarships, come on up and check them out. And so trying to be much more transparent with our students as to what their opportunities are. A big focus has been college and career readiness. And so we started in the fall with a night for juniors, mainly juniors and seniors, but it was called Getting Ready for the Road Ahead. And what we did is we brought in some outside resources, the Vermont Department of Labor. We brought in Upward Bound. We brought in VSAC and their Gear Up representative. We had someone here from CCV, from Vermont State Colleges. And so just really trying to get the word out there to our students and our community and our families, what's available to our students and what our resources are. And there's some amazing resources that, we just keep trying to get that out as much as we can. We had a FAFSA night where our Gear Up representative came in and worked with families that wanted to work on that, because that can be challenging for parents as they're preparing for college. We just held a junior jumpstart to the senior year evening. And again, that was more about graduation requirements. What does your senior year look like? When do you start looking for recommendations from your teachers for college? If you're looking at career readiness, again, Vermont Department of Labor, and just trying to make sure that we're sharing all those resources with our students, because when we did the Getting Ready for the Road Ahead in the fall, we were shocked at all the resources that are out there, all the scholarships and opportunities for students and internships. So just making sure we're sharing all of those things. Really looking at our flexible pathways for our students, dual enrollment, early college, work experience, internships. We have a student right now doing an internship that I'm absolutely loving. We also are really excited this year, so VTVLC, which is the Vermont Virtual Learning Cooperative, those are online courses that our students can access if it's something that we don't offer. And really excited that one of our counselors, Dia Kimball, actually has gone through the training to be a teacher. So we are now a teaching school, so we can offer more of those courses. So we get like 40 seats that we can offer to students. So those are all courses that we don't offer, but it's another opportunity for our students. Again, we took students to St. Michael's in the fall for a college fair, and we just today went to Castleton and went over there and took our juniors over for, again, a college and career readiness fair, which was wonderful. It's such great experiences for our kids to be able to do these things. And we're gonna finish up with a college tour of UVM on April 28th. And they have planned a full day for us, and it's for juniors again, of the different colleges. So we're going to the College of Arts and Sciences, the College of Agriculture, College of Nursing and Health Sciences, and Engineering and Mathematics. So giving them a full day so that they can see all of the opportunities that are there for them. We've been working really closely with Nathan Hickey, who is our Gear Up counselor for VSAC, our VSAC counselor, and just scholarship opportunities, and really trying to let our kids know that it's not impossible for them to be able to go to school or access these apprenticeships and different certification programs that are out there. So that really has been our focus, just improving our systems, improving our communication, and hoping next year, we've been focusing on juniors and seniors this year, getting that down to the sophomore level. We are going to take freshmen to, we haven't finalized this yet, to the College Access Day at CCV in May. And just giving them these opportunities to see the things that are out there for them. So that's really been a huge focus. And again, just help, developing their 4-year plans. What am I doing after high school? What does it look like? And just starting that earlier so that we really can hone in on what their personalized plans and goals are. much it.
Questions?
Comment question again. Like so I graduated high school. I took a year off. I wasn't ready for college, and then I came back and was working. And I didn't want to pay for a 4-year college, and so I did community college for 2 years. Got an associate's degree, and then went to Green Mountain. And my associate's degree cost about like 1/2 of a semester, and I just wonder how do you destigmatize community college? Because it feels like a lot of people, if you're kind of in the middle, you might be applying for colleges, but maybe you're not quite ready or what. But what are you guys doing actively to try to funnel people and say that's an okay way to go?
So we've talked a lot about that, and that was today part of going over to Castleton as well. The dual enrollment process has been great for that, because they have those 2 vouchers that they can use, and they go take a CCV course or they can take a Castleton course, and it gives them that exposure. And CCV, we've had that partnership where they come in and they tell them, these are the different programs, and you could do 2 years of this. Like nursing, we were amazed at all the different avenues that you can get to in a nursing program. So if you're not ready for a 4-year, here's a 2-year option. So working with those outside resources, working with CCV, working with now Vermont State University, to really break down those barriers. And also, I think for our students, especially post-COVID, the financial piece has been huge. CCV offers some amazing opportunities for our students. So those were the things that they heard about today. So we just want to get it out in a bigger scale. So we have students that are attending some of these things, not as many as we would like. So to continue to get that message out there in that partnership. We also have partnerships with Upward Bound, which that's another fantastic opportunities for our students. So they've come into our building, they've met with our students, we've had Governor's Institute come in. We're just trying to keep providing all of these opportunities for our students.
So I wanted to ask, and I want to speak to Josh's comment, I wanted to ask if we as a school, Mill River or a district, do we do stakeholder outreach to community partners for internships or apprenticeships?
So we're trying to do more of that. So we're building this year, and that's what I said, this has kind of been building the bridge to those kind of outside resources, but now that we've connected with the Vermont Department of Labor, their apprenticeships and things that they have available are amazing. So our goal is to keep expanding that program next year. This year it's really been to kind of start to find our resources, and now that we found our resources, to really keep working with those partners to provide more opportunities for our students.
I'm thinking Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, that's another, yes.
So, and then to Josh's point, because Josh, you bring up a really important point. I, as a classroom teacher, I always say to my students, the best kept secret is CCV and Castleton. I have one alum, there we go, that's the singular, masculine. I have an alum in mind, and I'm just wondering if testimonials of students who have gone through CCV in Castleton, I know some amazing stories of students who, did that route and they emerged without debt. And that's so important in this day and age. So I'm wondering if testimonials on our website might be powerful.
That's a great idea. Great. And we did with our Getting Ready the Road Ahead, we invited some students to come to speak to our students. I'm in communication with a Castleton professor who wants to bring some students over to talk to our students that have gone through programs. So just like I said, just keep making those opportunities happen for our kids, and those are great suggestions. Thank you.
And I wonder about pairing that, because to hear from somebody to say, I went to CCV, I don't have huge piles of debt, and I'm successful and happy, great. To hear from people who are doing the hiring that go, yeah, I don't see community college on an application and throw it in the trash. As crazy as it might sound, we see a lot of applications for professionals with 4-year degrees and master's degrees and beyond, and we don't spend a lot of time looking at the name of the college. We don't. So I think hearing from the students that have benefited, but also hearing from employers, I think might help. Because there is a stigma.
Make sure we tell the parents that there's not a huge, because I went to Castleton for 4 years and walked out with a lot of debt.
Yeah.
As long as telling our juniors and seniors, if we have a night where the parents get to come and we can actually pull the VSAC people or collaborating. I think there's some financially gurus in the area that actually help parents with the applications, pulling them in and reassuring, because in this day and age, it's going to be really hard for a parent to not want to push their child for college if they're also looking at $150,000 worth of debt.
Absolutely.
Well, we're still
Big-
paying our own.
And we're still paying our own student debt on a loan. I mean, and I'm just thinking that if we can be able to outreach not only to our students, but to our parents. Some are single parents, some are, dual income, some are, all different scenarios that we have in the school system, being able to say, okay, we can help you too. We're gonna help your, children and stuff too, but we'll give you outlets or give you resources, because it's as scary as hell for a parent too.
And that's why we had those nights. We had the night in the fall, and just had that night where it was families that we brought in, and we were talking about it today, the counselors and I, like, how do we get more people to come? So we're already thinking about this summer, like, what's some information that we can put out at the beginning of the year, saying these are the things that we're going to offer this year, and try to get more to the table.
Well, and even with our, like, if Lynn's sending out a bunch of emails about, send out the scholarship stuff, but then also send out resources for parents too.
And
You're sending out the scholarship, to the students, realistically, would rather go play football, or basketball and not think about it till the last minute. Like, reassuring the parents that we are there too. To kind of cover all of it. I mean, I think in a whole different note here, we're looking at, hopefully this year, and have been, transitioning our 6th graders to be more comfortable into 7th grade, transitioning our 8th graders to be more comfortable in the requirements of your last 4 years in high school. We need to transition our juniors, seniors, even back to 10th graders, to be a little more comfortable with going to college. So we're having that smooth transition all the way through. Is something that we can easily look at and help cover all of our bases.
And I think, we do have some board members who are a little newer than others. We had a lot of feedback, and you can probably speak to this too, Stacy, having been here for a while. We've gotten a lot of feedback from families, from kids, that we have been lacking in the college preparedness area. So I hope what you hear is, adding an extra third counselor several years back, maybe about 3-4 years ago in the budget, there was an additional counselor. There was a big conversation around why, and part of the why was to do that work. So hopefully you're hearing that work is happening. That's another great way that the board can have goals and support that work. If we see a need and we can fill it with personnel, there's a very clear board opportunity. Do we know if that work is paying off yet?
I see our conversations are happening much more. So I think there was some disinterest for a little bit, and certainly with COVID it was difficult, but I see we're getting more and more interest. We're getting those students that wouldn't normally be talking about going to college that are talking about going to college. The students that went with us today, and those conversations were about how to pay for it without being in debt. Where are your resources? What are you looking at? So just that, keep exposing them to that information, and I think it takes a lot of time and planning. I will admit, we spend a lot of time getting these events together. They're not easy to pull all of it together, but it has been so worth it. And like I said, we were just amazed when we started talking. We also we brought the Vermont Department of Labor into school one day, and they were meeting with the seniors when we did our PSAT day. And we had different groups that the students could go to, so they could access VSAC, they could access CCV, they could access Castleton. So that was during the school day. But just having them kids, like, I was going and like, come on, let's go talk to this guy at Vermont Department of Labor. And they started going and getting their friends. So just having those conversations. So I feel very confident that we've done a great job this year of really upping the stakes with that, but there is more work to be done. And we are well aware. We just want to keep making those improvements, and that's our goal.
And I think clear to see that more is being done, and we'll keep listening for the feedback, and we'll keep making tweaks as we hear that feedback.
If we can focus, and I'm thinking of my child and Matt's couple children that he has, the children that may not go to Stafford but then want to do a trade school, having VTC somehow incorporated a little bit. And I'm just thinking personally for my child who may not decide to go to Stafford, because that almost seems like the next step, but not losing those that still want to do a 1.5 or a 1 year, condensed, quick trade school to be, the next carpenter out there or something, just so we don't lose those two in that
I think there are
process.
programs also through the hospital.
Yes, yes. So we had a student that did an LNA program in the summer. We are also too, right now, like we have MedQuest that our students are going to be attending. Again, Governor's Institute. So there are so many opportunities out there, and we're just doing our best to make sure that our students are availing themselves of all of those opportunities.
And something else that you heard that was based on a lot of feedback was Stafford, trying to make that connection. I mean, some of our long-term board members know that we always hear, well, the Stafford kids feel like they're being left out, they're forgotten. So I want to highlight that that's something, a shift based on feedback. And the SAT, you didn't mention this, Karen, but we did the SAT in-house. We hosted it at Mill River, which I think is a great move, because that makes it far more accessible for our students to actually take it. It's during the school day. So I think that was worth adding to that.
And can I just add too, our counselors do actually go to Stafford now and meet with students.
Yeah.
So that's something else that we're trying to do, and go over their credit accounting and anything else they want to talk about. So we actually have a counselor that goes over there. Plus, we have Stafford students that are with us Thursday mornings B block, that I actually work with those students in the morning, and they come to us, some students G block on Wednesday, and our counselors work with them. So those are other opportunities to connect with the Stafford students that do start their day with us or come back to us at the end of the day. And I just want to thank you for this opportunity, because I think it's really important. Our counselors have been working really, really hard. And I just want to acknowledge that. Our guidance team has been amazing this year. The time that they spend and the work that they do, all kid focused, and that's what we want. So I'm really grateful for all of their hard work too.
Thank you very much, Stacy. Anything else? Any other discussion? Sports update? Do we have?
I will do that, yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I sent that to folks so that you have it, you can refer to it, it'll be in our minutes later too. Kim is still on leave, so she has some things she can attend to, some things she can't. Remote, she could have joined us, but not being remote, she passed this along to me. So fall athlete participation numbers, we had 369 students that participated in the fall. We have 108 total spring athletes participating in our Division III athletics. We've got 15 varsity softball, 15 varsity baseball, 15 varsity ultimate frisbee, 13 JV softball, 11 varsity track and field, 10 varsity unified basketball, and we just won our first unified basketball game out at Otter Valley, if you didn't see that. And that was in the Herald even, I think, they featured it. I saw one of the kids in the hallway the day before that game, and he was so excited that they were playing, so that's awesome to see that program run. 18 middle school softball and 11 middle school track and field, so some pretty strong track and field numbers even for the middle school there. The breakdown is 62 female students in winter and 46 male students in winter sports. We do have 5 students from MSJ who are participating with us in track and field and middle school softball. We have that agreement among schools, so if they offer a program, we don't, or we offer a program, they don't. So participation numbers over the past handful of years, you can see that this year we have 97. Last year we had 100. 2020, 113, and that was a funky COVID year with no spring sports. You can see that our numbers are holding strong from where they've been the previous several years. Kim did that breakdown in the fall, if you remember, to show that actually a decline in our numbers isn't a decline in percentage. We've had that decline in enrollment every year, so our numbers are holding fairly steady, if that makes sense. Kim's got a couple of coaching positions that are open and posted right now that she's trying to fill. A varsity girls basketball coach, varsity boys basketball coach. They are wrapping up interviews for a varsity soccer coach, so they hope to have that finalized next week. A couple of housekeeping items she's got on the list. Middle school softball, varsity baseball fields will be getting work done to them in the next couple of weeks. That is a direct opportunity based on the board's work. That was our budget item that finance worked with us on, got to the full board, got on the ballot. We got a yes vote to do that work. That's that $80,000 that we had specifically set aside for certain pieces. The last board meeting we had, I told you we've been struggling to get people to come in and do that work. We were finally able to find a window where somebody was available and they are coming in to do that work, which is great. So huge thanks to the board, because that is something that is directly going to benefit our sports program because of that work we did this year. Baseball, softball dugouts, press box, concession stand, football locker room are going to be painted too. So we're sprucing up a little bit to make things look nice. In the past, we've done big projects. We're trying to focus on medium-sized, small things to make things inviting. That's been feedback that we've gotten and we're trying to deliver on. Kim's big picture goals. We want to remove the bleachers out there and purchase some new bleachers. I think I told you at the last board meeting that nobody wanted them. So we're probably going to have to pay to remove them, which is a little crazy to think that much scrap metal nobody wants. But
Well,
we're...
Max Steel closed.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Wait, say that again, Max Steel?
Closed.
I know, I heard that. I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like our only people around.
Yeah, but we're working on it. Tim may know a little bit about where that is. New goalposts for the soccer goals for the main varsity field. Some maintenance on all of our fields is going to be done. We're looking into digital signage for out front to display announcements, and I would imagine that having some upcoming sports dates on that would be useful and helpful. And we are trying to establish a Hall of Fame for Mill River athletes. So. We don't.
I thought
We're working on it.
we had one for
There may have been a period in time where we had something, but I don't think there was anything ever consistent or anything that's been recent.
There's a banner on the wall in the gym that has Hall of Famers on it.
Okay.
I thought we had more.
It might be something that hasn't been done in the last 10 years or so. It's been a while, Stacy.
It's been a while, yeah.
Can I just ask a question?
Yep. And Kim also said any questions that I can't answer, we'll get quick answers to you.
Okay. It's just a question number. So it says
Yeah.
fall athlete participation numbers.
Yep.
Then it says total number of students attending Mill River, 369.
Oh,
So
oops, I read that wrong. I'm sorry.
I just wanted
Thank you.
clarification. That wasn't the participation, it was attending, right?
Yeah, sorry about that. Thank you for catching that.
So 108.
So it would have been,
Yeah, so I think,
Participating.
yeah, she was giving that number so that we could
fall athletes.
have a sense, yeah, that roughly about a third of our students participate. Yeah, but I read that wrong. Thank you, Cindy. Questions that I could try to answer, and I will pass to Kim if I can't answer. Okay, we have one last update from her planned that'll be in June after the wrap-up of spring sports. So we tried to do 4 throughout the year so you could get the seasons from athletics.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Tim, all you.
Well, I'll start. I did want to thank you guys for the $80,000 that we're being allowed to put towards athletics. Hopefully next week the ball fields, baseball, high school softball, and the middle school softball are going to be re-edged, no bases, some fill brought in, leveled off, brought up to where they need to be. Participation numbers are wonderful. You know, they're down, I think, at every school. You know, it's been tough. So So that money will be put to great use. We did get an estimate on new bleachers. Scared me.
Oh, no. I
I
haven't
think
heard
it
this
was,
yet.
I think it was around 150,000, and that didn't include the site work.
Holy cow.
Why is it so expensive?
Metal's expensive.
And we did only have one estimate, so, you know, it's just a number that we're starting with. So, and obviously that may be somewhere above midpoint where, you know, there's different levels of things that could be done.
We can't
The-
sell the other ones.
There, if you know anybody that would like to buy them, I would be happy to entertain it. I did call some scrap yards. I actually called a couple contractors that I think Brian mentioned will charge us to get rid of them.
I was gonna say,
So-
at this point, it almost sounds like if you could give them away.
Yeah, well, that's a thought,
Weekend
but
team
they're
building.
pretty unstable. They're really not safe. And another idea we had is maybe getting a dumpster and having some of the shop kids, as part of a class, take them apart and put them in a dumpster. That was just an
Work-based
idea.
learning.
Huh?
Work-based learning.
Yeah, something like that. But that would actually leave us without bleachers for football or soccer this fall. So that's
What
something
type of
that-
replacement are we looking into?
Excuse me?
What type of replacement are we looking into?
Basically, they're just the same style, a little bit bigger. There's backs on these, like the ones that are now really technically should have backs on them. And they have to be wheelchair or handicap accessible, sorry. We don't have that today. There is ways you can get around it, like we could allow cars to drive down and around, you know, to get away with that. But anything new that we install has a different set of standards than what's there today. So we can still keep what we have there today, try to shore everything up, make them last another year or two if we need to. But if we really do deem them unsafe, we may go a year without bleachers, which I'm sure that's not going to make anyone happy, especially after the great season the football team just came off, which was great. So it's a work in progress. Not the best update that anybody would want, but we are working on it. We did get the new scoreboard in and installed for softball for this year, so that's a plus. The football field upgrades that we're looking into, we have a plan, but I'm waiting to hear back from the state. I don't know if we've shared this or not, but our stormwater runoff plan at the high school is, I'm going to say like maybe 5 years out of date. The state's granted us a waiver, and there's actually federal funding out there that we qualify for, because this is going to take an engineering firm to come in and redo our stormwater runoff plan, which could involve minor work, or it could involve something as much as removing the entire driveway as we know it right now, bringing in 3 feet of fill, redoing all the piping from basically Middle Road out to beyond the football field, which again, in that the federal funding covers the design, not the implementation. So we're hoping for the best on that. They gave us 18 months. I don't think we have to have the plan until next summer. So the state has been great working with us on that. So we don't really want to spend a ton of money making an upgrade to whether it's paving or the football field until we have that plan in place. So just
Makes
something
sense.
to keep in mind. I don't have a lot of stats and data for what I've been doing this year, but I do want to talk with Stacy. I see she's not here right now, but I think she just described my youngest son. My youngest son went through the governor's program, the MedQuest, Upward Bound, did the dual enrollment, did his senior year at Castleton, got the green and gold scholarship, went to UVM. COVID hit when he was up there in February, March. He absolutely had the worst time doing remote. He actually had to drop out. And now he's going to CCV. So it kind of went this whole full circle, which I don't want to get off my buildings and grounds, but you kind of described my son, and he's happy what he's doing now, and things are working out. And it wasn't really so much about the debt, because he did have the full scholarship, but you know, every student's different. every child's different. UVM would not talk to us. He was 18 years old, nothing. I mean, me and my wife would call twice a week. They wouldn't talk to us. CCV, we call them up, come on in, we'll talk to you, we'll meet with your kids. So anyway, not to get off buildings and grounds, but, so as far as projects, I don't have a lot of big projects going on this summer. Up in Tinmouth, we're trying to do an indoor air quality, put some heat recovery units in, all federal funding. It's out to bid right now. Bids are due the week after break. I've reached out to a few contractors, not a lot of interest. We are gonna get one that I know of. 3 is always the number that we would like. We've talked with the state, you know, and just so all our ducks are gonna be on a row in case we only get 1 or 2 bidders. But hopefully that'll be a summertime project. Up in Shrewsbury, we have a asbestos project on the table for removing, I'm not sure which wing you call it, but the wing where you come up from the teacher's lot into the side building there. Those 4 classrooms in the hallways. We have a plan to remove all the ceiling tiles, clean the area, replace all the ceiling tiles, shampoo carpets, things like that. We were looking at trying to do a carpet replacement up there. That's probably not going to happen this year, but it is on a list. Here at Clarendon, we were looking at some soundproofing in here and looking at replacing this floor. Probably not going to happen this year either. The soundproofing dollar amount was absolutely insane. I mean, you'd probably be able to rent a facility for the amount of meetings that we've had here for the next 30 years, and it would be less. So that's something to remember. Also up in Tinmouth, we did have to buy some refrigeration equipment up there for the cafeteria, both their commercial refrigerator and their regular household refrigerator. Let go on us this year, so we did replace those. A lot of maintenance on the heating systems went on. It was a learning experience for me. Brian and all the principals are well aware of of the issues that we had. Probably the only positive thing I have to say about all that is I learned a lot about all of our heating systems.
That's
so
good.
That was good, and I probably talked to the principals more than they wanted to hear from me. But I think we're on even though we're coming into the spring season, I think we're in pretty good shape with our heating system.
Do we have a strategy for when we are on summer break, the lawn mowing that happens at the schools? Last year I ran into behind Clarendon where that field is.
Where the walking path is?
Yes.
Yes.
A lot of our community members still use that, and it was not being taken care of. This is before Tim came.
And I think the challenge is
So, yes.
that was never planned for, never budgeted for, never.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Well, now that it's
unfortunately.
dedicated to,
And we do contract that piece out to I don't know when it started. I do know the gentleman that does it was doing it when I came in September. I can't answer to the summer. I'm not sure what went on there, but we do have him on board to keep that mowed.
okay. As long as we can just kind of, because the community does. I was getting complaints a lot.
The youth Little League teams are going to put up some backstops and things out there. No money coming from the school. It was basically, they're gonna provide equipment and labor, and if any fill or anything needs to be brought in, which is, it'll benefit this town in the long run, but it will be used also by the Rutland County Little League as part of the deal. So I think that's,
You maintain it a little.
yeah, and part of that deal is we maintain it, so it will be mowed and weed whacked and things like that.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if I answered your question totally,
Well,
but
yeah. I'm just thinking like, community members do that, and then they do walk around our school even during the summer. We have kids that, and if we're still not maintaining our appearance of being, then we want to still have that. that they still see the schools as warm, even though we're not in session. You know, I didn't know if we had contracts for the football fields and like, you know, the care and
Yes.
stuff like that, or something.
Shrewsbury, we do in-house. I'm in the process of getting pricing. Our lawnmower, I guess last summer failed, and we did have to hire a contractor for the end of the season, but we are looking at purchasing a mower, so our custodial staff will maintain that like they have in the past.
Okay, all right.
I got a question. Do you have any update at all on the Wallingford kitchen situation?
I do. So as of right now, well, I'm going to break it into a couple parts. I'll start with there's been a lot of concern about lead in pipes and sinks and fixtures and things at Wallingford. The last few weeks, I did spend a lot of time with some very helpful people at the state. Right now, we have 0 violations of any plumbing or lead associated concerns in Wallingford. There was one sink that was, I believe it was called the nurse's station at one point, but now it's just a regular office. That one sink is the only thing that had not been retested, and it wasn't due to be retested until the end of this summer. So when we found that out 2 weeks ago, went down and spoke with Dan and Molly. I think it's Molly that sits in there. And we removed the sink. So that sink's not even in play. It won't need to be retested. And they are on, I think the lead and copper rule is every 3 years we have to do the testing for the state down there. So as far as lead concerns, we are where we need to be down there with 0 violations. I'm not sure, does that help? Does that answer anything?
That answers part of the question.
Okay.
But the other part of the question was, I don't want to get in the long story. The other part of the question was, I looked at the last 2 inspection reports.
Yep.
And we were marked for violations for hand washing sink, because we were taking fresh water at the hand washing sink, and for more refrigeration need. That's what I was addressing.
Okay. I should have also mentioned there, if you go on the state website, the Department of Health, where every public water system, all the records are available to the public, you will see that there's, other than that nurse's station sink, I think there's 2 other listed sinks that they say need to be tested. It's a clerical error on the Department of Health. They have not updated their website, and they are, like everyone else, blaming COVID for that. If somebody does go on the website and it looks like there's a violation, it's not, and I do have that in an email from the state that, we're just waiting for them to update.
Maybe we can talk later.
Yeah, and as far as refrigeration, I've heard a lot about the concerns, space concerns, age of equipment, and there was a plan maybe last year, 2 years ago, to try to do some type of outbuild, and the funds were diverted and used for a different project.
And what happened with that is we had ordered equipment, like a large sum of money for this equipment to address that work, and then the vendor said, you know what? I'm canceling your order. And this is right in the middle of COVID supply chain things. And the vendor said, you can reorder, and it's going to be like twice as much, like something that was ridiculous, and we just couldn't afford it. So we didn't just decide not to do that work. That work became impossible to do with the funding that we had.
So in the meantime, I've tried to come up with some different solutions down there as far as removing walls, interior walls. I've worked with the kitchen staff down there to see what is needed, what isn't needed, and I hate the word cheap, but a cheaper version of, making some improvements down there with knocking out walls, rearranging things, adding some more like regen refrigeration equipment. So does that answer your refrigeration part, or feel free to ask more questions, definitely.
We can talk later.
Okay.
And the last thing I'll say, just so everybody's 100% clear on it, the health inspection report for that Wallingford kitchen is a 97. And there were 2 items on the last report, like Bruce was saying. Neither of those items, we were not given a deadline to solve those problems, and they were not given like a priority of how large a problem they were just noted on there. They're things we absolutely look at and take into consideration, but that's totally separate from the lead issue. So Wallingford kitchen space does have a 97 on our health report, and anybody can look that up and find that. And there is a citation because the hand washing sink has a sprayer on top of it, and that's what what is being noted on that inspection.
And that is not a concern anymore. I did get that clarification last week from the state.
Okay.
It is not a plumbing violation. They weren't even sure what I was talking about because they have absolutely no record of because I took pictures, sent everything to them, and we talked with the plumbing inspector, and they're not sure where that citation or violation, whatever it's being called, and I don't have a record of it from previous people. So that is why I called the state to try to get up to speed on that, because obviously we want to make sure our drinking water, washing water is safe, and everyone knows how to use it down there. So I believe we're in pretty good shape down there with that. The size of the kitchen, yes, we know it's very cramped, and we're working on that. Does anybody have any questions?
I have and I don't need a detailed thing of just, is there any progress going on with the preschool side building in Tinmouth? Like, I know it's very complicated.
Very complicated. Pre-K, I know it was touched on with James. There's a lot of different requirements that I'm learning about that revolve around lead, heating systems, just overall fencing, playgrounds. There's a lot of items that I'm still working on. But
and we're waiting to hear back from Department of Health on that.
Okay.
Our pre-K coordinator has reached out to the Department of Health, and unless you've heard something new from Sarah, the last I heard from Sarah was we've asked the question and they haven't gotten back to us.
Yeah.
So
there is, of course, public knowledge. There is lead paint concerns up in Tinmouth. We went up. We thought we had a fairly simple plan to take care of it, and we came across a lot of other items like rotting structure. Can't just scrape it because boards, wood, things are going to need to be replaced. Windows are going to need to be replaced. All the caulking in the windows is lead based. So what I thought, or what I was hoping, was going to be a fairly simple, do these small projects and we're going to be great for pre-K. It didn't work out that way. So that is still, like Brian said, in the state's hand. We're trying to figure out what we absolutely have to do. May at this point mean moving some classrooms and some students around to try to accommodate things. But again, we're still just talking about that right now, and no plan. I know there was a plan for like maybe some type of mobile office addition up there also. The rotting boards and things in the windows on the structure along with the lead paint has kind of pushed that back a little bit. So the space crunch won't be addressed either this year, which due to other things, I think the structure of the building and what we actually have to do to keep the pre-K going is going to be a precedent over that.
So lots of things in the works at all of our schools.
And yeah, that's not
hear.
just Tinmouth. I don't mean to be picking on Tinmouth, but we have that to deal with at all of our schools.
And you didn't talk about the high school having hot water.
The what?
The high school having hot water, that being fixed.
Yes, we did lose. It's just, I'm sure Doug's probably a little familiar, but we lost our air water separator to the hot water system at the school, which we were without hot water in our upstairs for a couple months because it's the size of a small truck, the separator, and we had to order it and retrofit it to get it to fit. But we got that all settled and done, and yeah. The aging, all of our schools have aging equipment that'll have to be dealt with at some point. That one we had to deal with, it blew a hole. I mean, I could stick my fist through the hole in the side of it.
Does it still have the very large cylinder and stuff up on the second floor?
That's where the air water separator is. The heat exchanger, is right there, and then the air water separator is up in the mezzanine area up above that.
Conversation I had with my boss at the time, we're gonna have to tear apart part of the building and then get a crane and come in and how it was
That-
huge. It was
Yeah, there's a hot water
double
tank.
size of this table.
Yeah, well, that's the heat exchanger, but there's also a hot water tank that I don't believe is a secret from a lot of people up there that I don't think would fit through that door.
Put it
So
in
if
and
that
built the building
fails-
around it.
Yeah,
It's,
if that fails, we'd have some other issues, but we do kind of have, right now, we have like a semi-backup system, which is basically an oil-fired burner that we can, valve off and change valves and redirect water, so if it failed, we wouldn't be dead in the water, per se. So,
Good.
anyone have any other questions?
I'll throw something in real quick, sorry, just because I'm thinking about that, what Tim was talking about. Sometimes it's not worth pouring a lot of money into something if you're going to get a note from the state 6 months later that, oh, you've got to redo all of this. We just did our PCB testing at Wallingford. We likely will not have results from that PCB testing until maybe summer at best, I think, the fastest we'd get that. So if you think about a scenario where at Wallingford, if we had funding and we just tore the kitchen apart and put a new walk-in cooler and did some other things, we might hear in the summer, late summer, oh, you can't use that space for kids. So we're in this weird kind of limbo, and as we get into the fall, some of our other schools are going to be tested. As we get into January of '24, some of our other schools are going to be tested. So we need to be a little careful, and I think, worth sharing with the public. It might look like we're not doing some big projects and we're dragging our feet. It's because we don't want to do big projects and the state comes in and says, oh, but you can't use this space because of PCBs now. You have to do another big project. So we're getting into, I think, a kind of dicey next couple of years while we run through that testing. There is a bill going through the legislature right now to pause all of that testing. Just so you know, if you wanted to call up your representatives and talk to them about that. But Wallingford has tested, and we'll get those results back at some point in time. I think that's just worth keeping in mind as we think about investing in our schools. Yeah, we need to make those investments, but it's going to be tricky timing over the next couple of years.
And if anybody wanted to research some of the PCB things, the school that, I'm not sure who knows about it, but Burlington High School was actually the first school in the state tested. They closed them that day. At the end of that, because of the PCB levels, and now there's a $150 million bond out there to try to rebuild a new school. That was the start of the PCB program, the way that I understand it, and the state kind of backed off a little bit, realizing we can't close every school in the state.
PCB testing came before facilities funding. Now they're talking about facilities funding. So they've said, why don't we pause the PCB testing till we figure out facilities funding? Yeah, that makes sense, but that's kind of where things are.
Radon testing is also coming. We did just get a waiver, or the entire state got a waiver. I think it got pushed back a year for that testing.
2025,
so
yeah.
That's out there also coming. And this is all stuff that takes a lot of time to accomplish and get the materials for the folks doing this, but it's not really anything anyone's going to see. It's not an improvement to the school. It's just, it just takes time. Like the PCB testing, we have to give them a lot of data. They want to know data like the age of the schools, the materials that were built in the schools, any upgrades made to the school, the years the upgrades were made, and they want all this in order before they show up to do their walkthroughs.
So the state's been keeping Tim busy, but I think we've been keeping him busier.
And again, I know everybody, I don't want to take a lot of time, but you guys can find me, get in touch with me if anyone has questions at any time. I'm always be available to answer them or meet with someone or to address things. I do think there's a buildings and grounds meeting next week, I think.
Monday. Monday, 5 o'clock.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. All right, so now we're on to board communication and expectations. Did everybody have a chance to look at the list or the attachment that we sent out? That was what I read last meeting. how are we going to change it? Sam, you have that face.
Been a long day. I just came from a work meeting straight to here, so my brain is just chewing things.
Is your,
Because I'm just gonna state that I don't like the way that it reads.
do you dislike the fact that it seems like it would take a very long time to get a response back? Is that?
From who?
From like, well, if it takes 5 days, it's like, that's.
No, that's not.
You're fine
that's-
with that?
No. That, yeah, it is a concern of mine, but I just don't. I guess maybe this is not me as a chair. But I want your feedback on what you think response times should be, how you think communication should go, and so on. Yeah.
My only comment is if we're expected to check our email daily, we shouldn't need 5 days to respond.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
And are we keeping the expected check your email daily?
that's up to you. I'm just saying, if we keep one, you really shouldn't keep the other.
And
'cause it
we
doesn't
don't
make
need the 5 days for.
sense. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, even 48 hours is probably more reasonable. 2 days.
Yeah. That's what I was that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Because especially if there's not, like, if it's just a question that gets asked and then it's just in the, it's just out there and they don't get any response to it, and then it takes up to 15 days, it's like.
Yeah, that's.
So that's ridiculous, but.
Okay, so we will keep the check your email daily. And I'm not asking you to check your emails on a Saturday and a Sunday.
Right, that would
like
be the one thing I would say, is
daily.
like, if it says school days or
Like,
business days,
yeah.
I think that's a fair
Because
addition.
I'm not by my laptop on Saturdays.
Change it to 2 business days instead of not just 2 days.
Right, I think to put in business days is kind of a more correct assumption of the way that,
The email, okay.
and responses if we're changing them to.
And again,
Let's
this is expectation, it's not policy. It's.
Correct.
You're
Exactly.
expected to do this.
Yeah.
So if you all of a sudden go 3 days, nobody's gonna, oh, shame on you.
You just may miss something, and you may have 5 emails instead of 1 that needed to be checked. Check email and response if needed.
And I think the reality is that, like, if
In
you were
40
waiting
days.
5 days and a person that you were waiting for to respond doesn't respond, then you wasted all that time. Where it's like, if it's just 2 days and there's someone who's just not participating in the discussion, which is fine. You don't have to wait for a non-participant.
Exactly, yes. So, speaking of that, can 4, 5, and 6, I would like to completely delete. And then we can, go with our own. I don't like those. So if we have number 1 being the expectation that the board members will check, and respond if needed within 48 hours, at least check, or do we want to put that as another whole bullet?
I think that's fine to.
Keep it as the one.
Check and respond.
Yeah.
Within 48 hours.
It doesn't mean you have to respond to everything, it's just because it may not need response.
Well, to Josh's point, you may not, a non-response is
Yep.
response, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if a question is sent to the chair, he or she will share with the full board promptly and request comments.
See, I don't think that even, if a question goes to the chair, it could be easily answered by the chair.
Exactly.
But what happened was, this was a confrontational situation, and a response went out which didn't represent what everybody felt. And,
Exactly.
that's what we want trying to avoid. But
Yes.
If it's a simple question, I say just answer it. But if it's a debatable thing, like the community is split on something, you can't take a side as the chair.
You cannot
You need to
speak
get-
as the board
Correct.
without consent. And realistically, if something is an immediate and has to be taken care of right then and there, then yes, I will send and say, please, 24-hour turnaround, this needs to be input, whatever. Otherwise, responses will be discussed because we're not together physically every day. And even if we're in committee meetings, we're not all in the same committee meetings. So they can be put on the agenda for the next. If it's an immediate response that needs to be taken care of right then and there, then there's ways to go through it. That's why I put it on here, because I'm having just an issue with, because Bruce and I, because we know how it was prompted. And holy crap, is it raining?
Yeah, it is.
Sorry.
I might like to see something that says that most responses will come with, like, if we're talking about something that's going to come up, with an invite to committee meetings or public comment, right? Like, I think that that's kind of a good standard, even if it's thank you so much for reaching out. As I'm working on replying to you, please remember that we really invite you to our, this committee or that. I think that would be a nice thing to just know that we have as a standard practice, because then that gets to us all. If it's a quick asking of a certain, past things, right? That's obviously different than a future thing or something that might need to take action. I think that's when we invite to speak to us all, or even to say, great, read my letter at public comment, right? We still invite a written public comment. So I think that's a good avenue for the majority of stuff that's going to come in, to ensure that, that's why we added the 10 minutes of discussion of public comment.
Yes.
So you had something, I just said give me a minute.
Okay. Good, because you just took my sale. So that,
Maybe
do we
should say
even really need?
with sensitive issues or something? I don't know.
Well, I think
Because I'm thinking the Minuteman.
Well, I think
You can't sit there and say, as a board chair, yes, we agree that you're going to, that's too sensitive.
I think where Andrea was headed to begin with, she can represent herself, but she can't represent the board.
And I can clearly answer an email and say, okay, it will be discussed at next board meeting. Please attend and express your concerns. I can easily say that on behalf of all of you. So there is no reason that I am going to get an email in regards to the mask, just an example, it's a horrible example, but the mascot, and I'm going to say, oh no, we're not going to use that anymore, and say it on behalf of you guys, because there's no way I would ever do that, and there's no way that can even happen. So anything that comes to me in the emails, half the time I'm CCing Matt, because as vice chair he needs to be in on it, or I'm sending it to the policy or the personnel chair, or Brian's got it, and everybody's got it who needs it, and then I'm replying saying, okay, thank you very much, can you please formally write it up and it will be discussed at the next board meeting. Or even,
So to read that one bullet, and to go back on what you just said, it makes no sense to say, let me send this to the board, take comment, and then reply to said person. When you could easily say, thank you for your whatever, please join us at the next board meeting. End of story.
Or at community engagement. Or please write in for policy, committee or something if you have
It's one
questions.
email instead of multiples.
Exactly.
I'll throw one quick wrench in.
Go right
Just to think about, not that this should change anything that you're coming up with, but just keep in the back of your head the potential for somebody to say, well, the next board meeting isn't until such and such, and I want an answer. Just, that could happen. It could happen.
But we can't.
I think it's a good strategy to say, hey, we'd love to discuss it with you, bring it to the board meeting, but
But we can't, it's like, I can privately send my comment to whatever the email is, and Liz can send her private comment, but we're not having a discussion. So we're actually, no consensus could ever be made.
Nope.
Anyway.
You're right.
Technically, yeah.
Right, so that kind of has to be the boilerplate response. And most of the time, when we get the broad emails, we all see them, and then we can do something about that. But it's like,
And if it's a question that there's a demand of I want an answer, soon, I wonder if it's not like a question that I couldn't answer really quickly or something.
That's what I was
like
gonna
that.
say.
Yeah.
Not
Most
a
of the
mascot
time,
debate.
most of the, that we have had and needed, like right
Yeah.
then and there, it's not even anything the board is on a regular basis involved in.
Yeah.
It's something that needs to be sent to Brian or, Caitlin or whoever it may need to go to.
Yeah.
Because we aren't actually the ones that are going to be involved in any of it.
Well, I would hate to be you if you get 9 or 10 people and you've got to respond based on all those people's.
Yeah, you just can't do it.
But to your point, Josh, that's not discussion, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So how can Andrea take everything you tell her and actually make sense of it, like you're saying, Bruce? Yeah.
So I think, to your point, Brian, I think if it's an immediate thing, then that's an administrative problem,
Probably.
not a board problem.
Probably, yeah.
And it's like, and if the administration can't solve it, then it's a board problem when the board meets.
Yeah.
Which is almost every 2 weeks.
It's quite common.
Pretty much.
Just about. I would say it does make sense that it is prudent to keep in an expectation and not like a rule or whatever that we check often, just in the off case, right? Like when we've had to meet to fund something quickly or something like that. I think that keeps in.
If we need an emergency meeting, there's provisions for emergency meetings. Yeah.
Which is in our Robert's rule, like.
Or bylaws.
It's clearly written out that if we need an emergency meeting, we have the ability to call an emergency.
Oh
meeting.
yeah, I mean it's just that's why it's a good practice for us to tell ourselves, hey, check your email.
Timothy got
every
hit
48
by
hours.
lightning. We have to figure out where all those kids go.
Right. I just think that's why it's a good hey, let's keep that rule, like that guideline in for ourselves as a good, smart. Check your email that often.
So in just a general, because I really don't see a need.
Yeah.
We run by
I said the same thing. I'm like, really?
bylaws.
Right.
Exactly. So we run by our own stuff. We run by Robert's rules. We run by our own bylaws and stuff. Honestly, if we don't even need one for one bullet that says, please check your email every 48 hours. I don't want to be chasing you.
Yeah.
Because that's like it. Like, I really don't see a need for this at all.
I think the only thing, our responsibility of checking our email and you letting us know that something is occurring, right? Most of the time, we all are included in the.
Exactly.
Anyway,
you guys
but if you
sometimes
happen
know
to
way
get it,
faster than I do.
So it's.
I think that our conversation about having it maybe every reorg or as part of when we onboard new people or something is just like this is a norm and an expectation can be a fine. Like we find that this is a smart way for us to do our business is that we're checking our email at least every other day and knowing that if you don't and you're not, you may not be as up to date to things. Like business happens at these meetings and sometimes you're going to learn more and be more up to speed in the moment because you're checking your email. So you may lose an opportunity to reply in a quick thing, but not any of our actual scheduled board actionable business.
And if you're not checking your emails, I'm going to call you on the phone and tell you.
That's
check
point,
your email.
That's bullet point 2. You do need a second bullet point. You got it.
I have all your numbers.
You gotta just drive around and talk to everybody.
I don't have time for
Come to the
that.
house. Go to Shrewsbury. We love to have you.
Toot the horn, go out.
There's still snow.
So I'm not sure if there's. Do we have to?
This isn't anything, right? This is just a
isn't
document
anything,
that
I don't think.
exists.
Can we just get rid of it?
I think so.
Sorry, Pam. I know you're freaking out over there. She's been like, wait a minute.
Truly, just from the rain, what do you want reflected in the minutes? Just with the rain, I could hardly hear anybody, so it was loud.
Is it safe to say that it was a great discussion and the board decided that we don't need a formal?
We do not need
procedure.
a board
I'll add one more thing
communication
before we-
expectation.
Beautiful.
I don't want to miss her thought. Keep going.
I know, because it's taken a lot to get this out. Best practice for the board is please check and respond to emails within 48 hours.
There you go.
If not, the chair will be calling you on the phone. Yes.
Well, at a previous community engagement meeting, we had a discussion about reorg and new members, and we were talking about, hey, it'd be great to have a one sheet. This is what you give to people. This would be one of those awesome things to say, hey, you should do these things. These are great things to.
I'm just going to say it at every reorg meeting.
Yeah, some norms, right? Because we do have ways that we work that are not policies, procedures, they are norms, and I think this is a good starting of one of those.
Talking about giving a sheet to new members at reorg. When I joined the board, when I joined the board 3 years ago, I got a packet from Maria French that was awesome. Is that still around?
I think I have one too.
Yeah, we've got that kicking around still.
VSBA sends out something.
We should send that out to all
The
the new
SBA
members.
sends out to all new board members, you should be receiving yours if you haven't already.
Okay, I just got an email yesterday welcoming me. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, but outside of the VSBA stuff, Maria French actually drafted something.
We do, there's a manual,
Okay.
I'd send it to Cindy.
Perfect, okay. Want to make sure that was still around.
All right, so the end of that discussion. On to the next, which is board member education. Thank you all for having that discussion with me.
No, I think the discussion was important. So huge one that I've got a couple of things that I'll wrap into this conversation. We had started during our reorg meeting talking about how do we best organize to do this work. And I think the strategic planning and the board education are two very important things, and to think about how do we balance doing both of those things in addition to our regular board meetings, in addition to our committee meeting commitments. I was trying to brainstorm some ways to make that organized and to make it connected so that it's not so much just one more thing, but that it's work that might feel meaningful and efficient. What I have to share with you today are just totally recommendations. This is not something that anybody ever has to do anything with, but I figured it was better than a blank page. So our starting point. So the materials, I numbered them based on agenda item. So 11A and 11B going along with this agenda item. The 11A is something I threw together, and I just reached out to Len and Sam to say, hey, committee chairs, historically you had been committee chairs. How does this sit with you? As a recommendation to reorganize your committees. Had good feedback from Sam and Len, so I asked Pam to put it in the materials tonight to look at with everybody. If you want to do this when you reorganize your committee, you pick a chair and you have some time to think about, well, what is this committee really doing this year? What are our goals? What's our charge? I think this might be a reasonable way to approach committee work in a way that you're always working on strategic planning. So that strategic planning is not some separate thing you do, but you are thinking about how does my committee support the board and its three main goals: budget, supervision, evaluation of me, and then policy. Those are really the three big ones. Well, finance committee's easy there, personnel committee's easy there, and then policy committee's easy, but how does policy support budget? How does budget support policy? I think thinking about how do each of these committees really get at those three main goals, my recommendation would be to try and do that work in your committees when you reorg.
I like this.
Absolutely up to you. So, I'll pause there.
I really like this.
Okay. Wait
Makes
time.
things much clearer.
Well, it gives you good guideposts, right? Like a good,
Yeah,
the guiding stars
exactly.
of what our work is as a board to be doing as governors. Like that's what I appreciated about the document.
Yeah.
So shifting over to 11B, that other document I sent you. So then how do we do this board education piece? And then how do we as a full board touch base on strategic planning? Because the feedback at our last meeting was we don't want that strategic planning just to be done in committees. We want that to be full board work. So how do we balance that and make it manageable? My proposal, and again, you can totally throw this out the window, or you can use it as a starting point, or go with it 100%, up to you. I was wondering if once a month we commit time, and it's just on the schedule, like our personnel meetings happen at our first board meeting of the month, that our second board meeting of the month would rotate through doing some strategic planning work, doing some board education work. I was thinking that strategic planning, we could spread that out into maybe about 4 or 5 sessions where we could be doing goal setting, few months go by, check in on goals, a few months go by, we're thinking about next year. That was a reasonable pattern. Doing strategic planning more frequently, I don't know that makes a ton of sense. And then the board education would happen a little more frequently, so that we could be picking topics that we think are important to us, and oh gosh, maybe negotiations is something we want to look at as a full board in the fall as our negotiation team starts approaching the negotiation table. Maybe a couple of months dedicated to that makes sense. Maybe November and December, that time is around budget stuff. I don't know. But that those would be places where we would have it on the schedule, we'd know it's coming, and then we are picking some of those topics and figuring out how we want to do that work there. We've got some VSB trainings. I've been trying to sign up for a bunch just to collect all the webinars. I'll watch most of them, but I've got all the links. So we're starting to have some resources we could use. We don't have to use those. We could pull in resources from other places. We could just set aside time to have a discussion. Like we talked about communication, we could have a discussion around how do we want to approach budgeting without too many resources. Or we could pull in a bunch of resources. So that was my brainstorming on that to give us a starting point to try and wrap up that conversation around how do we want to do that work. So that's what I got.
I think having it laid out like that is a good idea. I don't know how everybody else feels, but I feel like having the layout for our board meetings saying like, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and having you have done that for the whole year, I feel like that has really been successful. And it's not like us at the end of a meeting going, what are the things that we need to remember to do?
It's good feedback.
And so I think having this calendar also creates responsibilities for us as board members of being like, this is something we're committing to. And then it just happens. Yep. And then we just show up because that makes it easy for us.
I appreciate the idea of the education being what's coming up, because I think that's really key even too if folks are listening and seeing what we're about to learn about. I think that's a sideways invitation to also go, oh, they're learning about budgeting right now. Time to, I vote on that in March, but they're starting to think about that in November, December. I think that helps prime and get us in these cyclical habits, not just as board members, right, but as community members to go, that's what they're thinking about. I need to jump into that if I have a concern of that, or I want to know what they're learning, right? Because this wouldn't be closed, like that they can see what we're talking about and things like that. And I think that helps prime our communities for what we're anticipating and helps us also anticipate what's coming up.
I like it because it creates a system of accountability. So, and as we did just now, we can also revisit to say, does this make sense that we continue to do it this way? Do we want to make changes? Maybe annually we can say, all right, do we want to keep the schedule? Do we like the schedule? Is it, did it work these past 12 months?
And this, I don't think, would be anything we adopt officially. This would be a guiding document that we could even tweak on the fly. Yeah.
I think the other part is like, for me, like, I listen to some of the webinars and I do stuff, but it's like a one-way street, and being a new board member and like, it's like, I want to hear what other people also think about what's happening, because otherwise I don't think I'll get better at doing this.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. This is great.
Oh no, Len fell over. Anything else? Or are we on just summer program stuff?
If folks have more feedback, you can get it to me later. Really, this is not necessarily my thing. This is the board's work, and I don't mind supporting and organizing and helping, but I don't want you to feel like I'm pushing this on you. So,
on a first initial blush, it looks really good.
I wonder if look at that again real quick.
Are we going to get all the other things in our meetings?
What do you mean?
Oh, well,
we're doing pretty good.
I may not have been really clear.
Ideally, we said we'd like to be out of here by 9 o'clock.
No, we'll do like the hour prior.
This would be a 6:30 half hour before.
Yeah.
Sorry, and I didn't say that.
Yeah, we're not doing it right.
I was hoping a half hour would work.
We might need an hour.
Well, if we can do like flipped classroom, for example, right? Like, hey, here's the webinar, please watch this before, and we come in to discuss what we've watched. I think that could also be a smart use of our time.
So we have a little time. Our next meeting is going to be a personnel meeting and then a board meeting, before it, so maybe we can just decide what are we doing at our next one. I actually think it's strategic planning, and I think we just need to do that then.
It is.
If folks are comfortable with starting with that strategic planning, wrapping up vision, mission, values, we'll do that at our second May meeting. Then we'll kind of check in and see if we want to keep following the schedule. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
awesome.
I can already say, just looking ahead,
Mhm.
because for June you have to be determined, and then July
Mhm.
board goal setting, I
Mhm.
would like to move up board goal
Okay.
setting, just
Yeah.
in light of the
Yeah.
personnel conversation
Yep.
I have been to be here for.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Are you doing the summer program?
I'll speak to that a little bit. We had a request to put that on our agenda at our last meeting because there had been an email to the board.
Oh, yes.
And then that email was shared with me. I had not seen that yet. I believe we've responded to the individual who brought that concern forward. Really, the concern was that our summer program, and this is always funny because it's our after-school program that runs the summer program. It's a summer program. It doesn't happen after school, but that's who runs it. The summer program, in previous years, we had been able to actually run a program that was something like 7:30, 8 in the morning to like 5 p.m., which is huge coverage for a summer program. We were not able to figure out how to do that this year. There are a couple of reasons for that. I want to be very clear that this is not a local budget thing. This is not something that anybody votes on. This is a program that operates outside of our regular responsibilities as a district, and it's really fee-based. So families pay in to access this summer program, and what they pay in supports the program. So it wasn't that there were budget cuts. The challenge with the budget is, in the past, we've had grant funding that we could use to supplement this program. We do not have that grant funding to supplement the program this year. We already had to increase our costs to families. To increase our costs to cover to 5 p.m. would make camp even more expensive. So that's one piece that's challenging there. But that I do want to be clear that there was no weird budget cut that we just weren't clear about. It was grant funding that some years we can access, some years we can't. Staffing is hugely challenging. Around the region, programs have been closing. So to look at our folks who are already working during the day and say, oh, can you work a 12-hour day, is hard to do. We would probably run those people off and we wouldn't have a summer program, period. To find folks to work a few hours in the afternoon in the summer at what we could pay them is really challenging too. So to piecemeal and find those really, really part-time people is challenging. In the past, the staffing hasn't been as tight and the market has been wider. We've been able to hire. People haven't been as tired. It kind of seems like coming out of COVID, nobody's caught their breath yet. Everybody's just exhausted still by the time we get to this part of the year. The enrollment's another interesting piece. As of maybe a week ago, we have most weeks of camp full, waitlisted. We have 1 or 2 weeks that had not filled up yet, but we had very few spots left. And I absolutely hear the concern that we're not offering as much to our communities. I hear that. I see our capacity, what we are offering, people are filling up our program. And I know some folks are gonna go elsewhere for different programs, but I think it's an important sign that we're filling our program. If we weren't filling our program, I think we'd really need to take a very hard look at what we can do differently. If we're filling our program, then we're doing reasonably. We can absolutely keep soliciting feedback from folks. I think talking to Teresa, I've got a meeting with her tomorrow about like an exit interview for those camp families. Like, hey, this year we didn't offer this, but you did still attend. How important was that to you? Did you make it work because you like our camps, but you would have preferred it? I think we can still do that work, but I wanted folks to know, and I want the public to know why that happened and how the budgeting for that does work and the implications of that. Questions, comments, thoughts on any of that? Cindy?
Can I make a comment about Teresa? Because
Yeah.
I'm not even sure who she is. I've never met her.
Yep.
But I had sent her an email asking some questions about the summer camp.
Yeah.
And I mean, I heard back from her within 5 minutes. Like, response time was fantastic, and that is so important because there are so many times you send an email and you're like waiting and waiting and waiting.
Very responsive.
And you're trying to
Very
plan.
responsive. It was awesome. So if she's like that with everybody, that's huge.
Awesome.
All right.
That's all I have for that.
Thank you for that
Yep.
update. Are you doing, so we're on the committees, personnel, and I know there's a,
We've got that one contract, and I don't
Contract.
mind doing that.
you don't mind? Okay.
yeah. So
Len is only via phone, I guess.
Yeah. So we met today, Personnel Committee. We have a special educator that we have brought forward to Personnel, and Personnel voted to bring to the full board. We would ask the board to consider Emily Burlett for a full-time 1.0 FTE position starting July 1 for next school year. This is a position that we have not been able to hire this year. We've actually been down 2 special educators. So to have somebody lined up next year is fantastic. If we can hire another special educator, we'll be thrilled because we will be fully staffed there. So maybe a motion, then we'll do, if there's discussion.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Liz.
I will second that.
Discussion?
I will point out that she's a former Mill River graduate.
She is, yes.
Nice.
This would be a Clarendon position
Okay.
at this point.
I thought so. I just wanted to.
She's also
No, good
married
question.
to a Mill
Good
River
question.
alumni.
Any other discussion?
She has past work in Ludlow area, so she's familiar with the position. It's not like we're hiring off the street and she's got nothing.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
just so we know that part too.
All in favor?
Yes, Josh, you got that look.
I was just saying somebody say,
Okay.
I just want to raise my hand.
I love
I'm just
Josh's
waiting for
look.
it.
Trying not to take The personnel did talk a little bit more about superintendent evaluation, keeping that going to try and have something wrapped up by June. Liz was referring to that a little bit around goal setting and that being good timing for goal setting for everybody. And
Next meeting is May 3rd
thank you.
at 6:30. Okay, so the next committee is policy, and we have a meeting next week. So that's it. That was pretty easy. It is next Tuesday at 5:30. Hybrid option also available. And it's 5:30 to 6:30. So, and I lost my agenda.
Buildings and grounds.
Buildings and grounds. Thank you, Nick. That's the next committee.
When's next meeting, Doug? You just said it.
Is
Meeting on Monday.
Monday at 5.
5 o'clock, there'll be a reorganization meeting, as mostly anything is right about now. But shouldn't be much of a problem. We had a pretty good dedication from Tim today, so I think very good. I think he did very well. And he's dealing with some stuff that's really kind of tough. We'll try to get the small stuff to him.
Community engagement.
And just with negotiations not on there, they'll spill into each other, I suppose, just 'cause
Yes.
it's not there. So, just reorg is coming up for both those committees, 6:30 for community engagement and 7 o'clock for negotiations on the 11th, which is next Tuesday. Sorry, hybrid flavored.
Oh, and I think I missed that negotiations was going to happen after that, so I didn't get you any details on that.
Yeah, yes, just because negotiations is one of those ephemeral ones, so we just went, big day. If you like committee reorgs, you should really tune in to our meetings on that
Bring the
day.
popcorn.
Oh, yeah.
If you liked that sheet that Brian gave us, ooh, you might see that 3 times that day.
Be sick of it.
Okay, next is finance.
We have the following pay orders and payroll for approval. For payroll dated March 24th, we have regular payroll in the amount of $598,574.55. Dated March 31st, we have regular payroll date in the amount of $6,702.21 for a grand total of $605,276.76. For pay warrants from the general fund, we have a pay warrant in the amount of $311,276.27. From our after-school program, we have a pay order in the amount of $1,741.24. From our lunch program, we have a pay order in the amount of $49,318.28. And from our general fund, we have a pay warrant in the amount of $17,347.76. And then we have a void and a reissue, so net zero, in the amount of, I'm just reporting this because it's on the document, in the amount of $6,558. And the grand total of these pay warrants this evening is $379,683.55. From our student activities account from Mill River, we have a pay order in the amount of $1,251.27. And from Wallingford Elementary, we have a pay order in the amount of $962 for a grand total from student activity accounts in the amount of $2,213.27. And I move that we accept and approve these pay warrants and this payroll as presented.
I will second that motion.
Thank you so much. Any discussion, folks? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you, everybody. The next meeting of the Finance Committee is April 27th, which is a Thursday. We're meeting at 5 p.m.
Okay. Transact other legal business.
And actually, I have one. I forgot one thing from personnel, actually. We talked in personnel a little bit about Wallingford, late breaking news that we know that the principal has resigned effective April 28. We talked a little bit in personnel committee around the timing of our next board meeting, not being until the beginning of May, and trying to work hard to get something in place to support students, staff, community there. So the ask in the personnel committee was, how is the board comfortable authorizing administration to put an interim principal in place pending board approval in May?
So
did that capture that reasonably?
yes, and
from our?
can we just make that motion then? That we authorize?
Yeah.
Okay, so I
That's
would
what-
make the motion then that we authorize the board to, will you help me with the language?
Authorize administration to
Authorize
put an interim in
administration
place
to put in an interim principal in place at Wallingford Elementary,
pending board approval in
pending
May.
board approval in May.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
All in
And you
favor?
say you're going to do that in conjunction with people, like at the school or parents? Or
The hiring process, yes. Interim, we would have to put in place sooner, but we will, at the same time, as we have an interim in place, we'll start a hiring process.
But that
So
interim may not end up being the person.
No,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
interim would only be, good clarification, interim would only be until the end of this school year.
Be the last 7 weeks.
Yeah, basically, 7 weeks. So we wouldn't have time to do a process even, but we would start the process for a July 1 hire. Great question.
Have you done some thinking about it already?
We've done some talking already. We've been exploring as many avenues as we can in the last 24 hours. Yeah,
I knew it was pretty.
yeah. No, we've had conversations already. Yeah. No, good question, Paul.
So the interim approval, just so I clarify, is for this 7-week position.
Yep, basically. And I was comfortable having conversations with people that were gauging interest. I wasn't comfortable with doing anything until I spoke with the board.
All in favor? Okay.
Awesome, thank you.
Is that our only other legal business?
Only one I have.
Agenda building. So we will not have another meeting in April because of the fact it's vacation. and a lot of people will be gone. So our next meeting is May 3rd, so it would be for agenda that meeting. Just needed to make everything clear. Yes, Matt?
So, under agenda building, I've only been a board member now for a little over 2 years. And in that time period, I can't count the number of administrators, people that have broken contract on one hand. So we should probably look into doing some kind of a penalty or something, because it seems like it's constantly happening.
Bruce had mentioned that a while back, and we've started putting in new
Okay.
contracts
All right.
and renewal
I
contracts.
just want to make sure that there's some kind of protection to us, because what's the point of having a contract if the people are just walking away from them?
We've put in the same language that we have in the teacher master agreement.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. No, that's good point, Matt.
We can bring that up at personnel meeting again, too.
Yeah, yeah. Tinmouth is on our schedule.
Okay.
If that still makes sense to get a Tinmouth update. We also have a student wellness called for in policy, F28 student wellness update.
Yeah.
Kind of nutrition information, that sort of thing. Anything else?
So we will be up at Tinmouth?
Yep.
Yes, because we're double traveling. Okay, that's right.
Do we have time to get a start on strategic planning and maybe do just an introduction of
Yeah.
what board goals currently look like?
Yeah.
So folks can familiarize themselves with the current document and we can begin thinking about.
Then 2 weeks later, we'd have that half hour. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. If there's nothing else on that agenda, I think we can fit that in, no problem.
Can we have an update on Wallingford principal?
Yeah.
Please?
Good thought.
And do we need to, in personnel, approve the resignation? Because we have not approved him.
We should do
We will
that
be
next
approving him
personnel
after he's gone. And are we giving him an exit interview option?
They're always offered. They have to just request one.
He's got a couple days.
Yeah,
Or a couple
we'll reach
weeks.
out and ask him.
Okay.
Yep.
I think we crammed so much into this one.
Yes, we did. Yeah, we didn't do too bad.
Lucky we're not more than a couple hours. That's not terribly bad.
And it
All
doesn't
right,
sound
do
like
we,
it's raining right now.
if we think of anything else, like, send it off to Brian
I'm
and
gonna drive in the rain home.
I. Do we need an executive session for anything?
None I'm aware of.
All right, adjourning at 9:04.